In the spring of 1944, General Eisenhower was convinced that Operation Overlord would bring a quick end to World War II. This operation would take place on June 6, 1944, and better become known as D-Day. This operation brought together the land, air, and sea forces of the Allied armies in what became known as the largest amphibious invasion in military history. The operation delivered 5 naval assault divisions to the beaches of Normandy, France. The invasion force included 7,000 ships and landing craft manned by over 195,000 naval personnel from 8 Allied countries. Almost 133,000 troops landed on D-Day. Casualties from the landing alone totaled to 10,300. On the morning of the attack at the southernmost drop zone, labeled as Drop Zone D and would later become known as the Cursed Zone, the 101st Airborne found themselves in a flooded field. Several men had drowned in the drop and many were wounded. Soldiers began searching for a rallying point in the village nearby. One noticeable structure was the Church of Angeville-aux-Plaines. With its stone structure and wooden benches, this building was quickly set up as an aid station to treat the wounded. Over the next 36 hours, over 80 soldiers would be treated within. Two assistant medics led the operation at the church. Both men were part of the 501st Infantry Regiment dropping at Drop Zone D. Kenneth Moore was 19 years old with 3 weeks of training as a medic, and Robert Wright, 20 years old with 3 months of training. They quickly began collecting wounded soldiers using a 2-wheeled farm cart they found nearby. As the lesser trained medic, Kenneth did most of the solo runs. Upon arrival, Robert Wright took out a flag marked with the International Red Cross and hung it on the door of the church. This would symbolize the church to be a neutral site, treating all soldiers from both sides of the war. The two found the pews as an ideal place to treat the wounded. Initially, they began to treat soldiers where they sat. As more came in, they wished they would have placed the more critically wounded towards the center aisle and those with less serious injuries towards the back. However, what began to take place was those wounded with lesser injuries began to aid those in more critical condition.
Hey, welcome. You ever watch Shark Tank on TV? Sometimes I go on little binges where I'll watch for a while a Shark Tank or two when I sit down, and I'm always interested. It's fascinating to me, the things that sometimes the simplicity of a product that will make millions and millions of dollars that nobody's seen coming. Do you think people have figured out everything that they can ever figure out? People keep figuring out more stuff. It's also interesting how some people are great at building a business and how creative some people can be at inventing or creating something. There are things that are fascinating, and then it's also interesting to me that some people who are really good at creating are horrible in business, and some people who are bad at creating can be such good business people. It's just fascinating to me, and then just to watch that process play out. Sometimes though, it's fascinating to me, and I'll just be as nice as I can about this, but there's not that much nice you can do, how stupid some things are. Some people's ideas, you just go, what were you thinking? Who told you that was gonna be a good idea? And sometimes when they come in, I'm surprised by how things turn out, and it just tells you that I don't know. But sometimes I'm not surprised, and then sometimes things are just dumb enough that you just gotta say, what are you doing? I'll give you a couple of those. I just wanna say this. The first is a group of people that often feel a little picked on, a little insulted, because one of the things that they like or love or really, really care about often gets pushed aside and spoken badly of. I don't want to hurt your feelings or anything else, and 2 of the products today have to do with that. So I just want to say to all of you who are cat lovers that we think you are very good people, you're important, and this is not a shot at who you are. Just because you enjoy having something around that a lot of people would not want to have around doesn't mean anything, but you just get there a little bit different way. But I'm going to tell you, if you like this product, I really question your sanity. Here's the first one. It's called Licki, L-I-C-K-I. And when they came on a Shark Tank, the sharks laughed so hard they had a hard time presenting it, and the longer they talked, the worse it got. And the product is a product you can put into your mouth that looks like a tongue, and you can lick your cat with that product, put it in your mouth, and simulate licking, because cats love licking and love to be licked. And this way you can just share in your cat's world. That's just weird. That is weird on so many levels. I don't even want to talk about it. Now, you may say, I think that's perfectly normal. I really like it. Well, God bless you. But I'm just going to say on behalf of all the rest of the world, that ain't right. That ain't right. There's something weird about that. The Licky. The Licky didn't have a big run on Shark Tank, but it doesn't mean somebody didn't like it, and that somebody may have been you. Second one is this. This is called Potato Parcel. When they came on, they just got laughed at. It was hard for them to present. Now, the two guys that came on and presented it also were dressed up like potatoes, and that's never a great start. They got laughed at and laughed at and laughed at. And basically the concept is they will put a picture or a message on a potato and they send it to somebody. It's a gift box. And because everybody's always wanted a picture or a message on a potato, a spud. I have no idea how they came up with this, but I will say this. They ended up making a deal with one of the sharks. I think it fell through before everything ever happened. But I will say this, as goofy as that seems, this company still has a profit of over $500,000 a year, and this has been a few years back. They are still doing business and they're still winning, so what do I know? Who would have thought Potato Parcels would be a winner? Here's one last one. This one is called Cat Wine, and it's based on the concept that a lot of people like to come home at night, kick their shoes off, put their feet up, and have a glass of wine. And the only thing that would make their life a little bit better is if their friendly cat could have a glass of wine with them. And so they made Wine for Cat. Here's a couple of things about it that this makes me go, seriously? Here's the first one, is that this bottle of wine for the cat costs more than the average bottle of wine that humans drink. They're paying more for that than what they pay for their own. Really? Basically, it is liquid catnip with some stabilizers in it to make it palatable and usable, because we want the cat to enjoy the process. Now, here is the really odd part of this story, is that they're still going for this company. By the way, this particular flavor is called Pinot Meow, because, you know, that's not the only one. There's actually several, because you may want to pair it with a specific cat meal. I don't know. But the weird part of this one to me is, it may say a lot about how lonely some people are, that what they feel like is a completion to a day is to put your feet up and have a glass of wine with your cat. Loneliness is one of those things in our society today that seems to be on the rise. As a matter of fact, you can go Google it for a minute and you'll find that there are lots of people talking about a loneliness epidemic that's in our world today. In 2023, they did a massive study. Over 20 countries represented, thousands and thousands of people. And they found that in some studies, up to like 75% of people say they experience some level of loneliness on a regular basis. Many who say they feel that often. I tell you who is most affected is actually not what you would think. It's not the oldest in our world, it's actually the youngest. The Gen Zers and now whatever is coming behind that are often feeling. That is so weird though, because for me, I think people tell me we live in the most connected society there's ever been. I looked at my phone this week. I've got 4,000 plus contacts in my phone. Just people who I know or have known that I keep as a contact in my phone. How could I ever be lonely? There's 4,000 people I can just in 1 second call up. Not only that, I can go online and I can keep up. I've got friends who I went to high school with in 1843 who I still know and have contact with today. I'm connected. I can be connected with social media. I can keep up with whose birthday or who did whatever. I can comment or they can comment on my stuff. People have followers and friends and all of those things. We live in the most connected time in life, but the reality is most people aren't feeling connected through all that. loneliness is actually running higher than ever before. That's actually a problem when it comes to where we are as a church, where we are as followers of Christ. We're in a series called Life Support. And one of the things that we figure out is for your life to be well supported and you to become the person God intended you to become, this issue of how we connect with other human beings becomes a really big deal. As always, the best example of how to do that, maybe we can find it in Jesus, because he landed on an earth that was full of people, and how he navigated all of the people in his world is very interesting. Matter of fact, I want to look at it together for just a little bit today. I'll start with this verse. We just jump into the middle of a story trying to land on a really specific point. It says one day, soon after, Jesus went up on a mountain to pray, and he prayed to God all night. Let's just stop there. Whatever's been going on in his life as he's moving from place to place, there is something very serious on his mind. Now, maybe you've been there where you've got a big decision. You've got some big stuff coming up, and you end up praying and praying and praying. You keep going to God saying, help, help, help. I just want to do the right thing. I don't want to mess this up. This is a big deal. And so here's where he was pointing. At daybreak, he called together all his disciples, and he chose 12 of them to be apostles. So he goes up, the middle of the busyness of life, he goes away and he spends time with his Father, and he prays and he prays and he prays, and he comes down after giving all of that time and deliberation, consideration, and seeking the direction from his Father, and he takes from his disciples. Now, we don't know how many disciples there were. We can guess. We know there were more than 12 because he chose 12. Most people feel like there would be dozens or maybe hundreds of people. And by disciples, they were just apprentices. They were just people who were following him. They were people who were identifying him as my teacher, the one I'm going to emulate, the one I follow. And wherever he went, they just seemed to end up. And there were a lot of them. And he stops in this awkward thing. He comes down from the mountain, everybody is together, and then it's almost like a schoolyard pick that so many people hated when you're growing up, how awkward it is to wait and wait and wait. And he goes, and the Bible even gives them everyone's name, and he said, I choose you, come on, you, come on, you, and he chose 12 of them to be his apostles. They were the people who followed him most closely. They were the people who would spend more time with him. They were kind of inside the ropes, in the loop a little bit more. It's not that he didn't care about everybody. He did, and shows that in so many ways. But with these 12, he invested more into them. It's certainly interesting how that plays out. Jesus was intentional when choosing those who would be closest to him. It wasn't haphazard. Matter of fact, he's prayed all night about it. It was a big deal to him. It was a big deal to his outcome. But that doesn't stop there. There actually goes a little bit further. I'll give you an example. There was a time he arrived and a young lady had died. The daughter of a couple had died. And he arrives. People said, would you come and help us? Would you help us? When they arrived at the house, Jesus wouldn't let anyone go with him except for Peter, John, and James, and the little girl's father and mother. He goes into the room, end of the story. He brings the little girl back to life. But when he went in there, he didn't take all the house was packed with people mourning, weeping. He didn't take everybody. He didn't take all 12 of the apostles. He actually took Peter, John, and James, of course, mom and dad, in there. They experienced something there nobody had ever experienced before. They experienced something that most people will never experience in any way. They got to see something with Jesus. It's like he let them into his innermost circle. He trusted them in ways. He experienced things with them. And it wasn't the only time. Over and over in Scripture, you'll find that these three. I'll give you one other example. Once again, we're just jumping into a story. It says about 8 days later, Jesus took Peter, John, and James up on a mountain to pray. And this is a time when God the Father shows up, and these three men with Jesus are able to see Moses and Elijah, and they have this amazing moment, and God identifies Jesus yet again as the one. I mean, it is mind-boggling. It's called the Transfiguration, and it was a a once in a lifetime, one of a kind event. And you know who shared it with him? Peter, John, and James. Those same three guys. It's like he let them in on the most intimate, the most meaningful moments of his life. This wasn't just meaningful to them, it was meaningful to him. It was a big deal. So Jesus had three groups of people active in his world. He had the crowd, and sometimes that was hundreds, sometimes that was thousands, and the crowd was incredibly important to him. Often people would say, hey, let me send them away, and he'd say, no, bring them to me. People would say, let me shut them up. I won't let them touch you. And he would say, no. He cared deeply about the crowd. Over and over it says he was moved with compassion. The crowd was incredibly important. But from the crowd, he separated 12, and that would be his community. That would be the people he kind of breathed life into. That would be the people he invested the most. That would also be the people who loved him well and cared for him and brought some life to him. And then the crowd and the community, and then he had three people that were part of his crew. Today I want to talk to you specifically about how we navigate life where there is a crowd. You can't go anywhere there's not people. Some of you, the reason you're watching this today is you're peopled out. You're like, if I have to be around a group of people again, there's a community. Those are people that we have kind of in our circle that we would point to and call them friends. They're people we invest in. They invest in us, that we know and we are known by. But also we need to have some people in our world. We'll call them today our crew, just for lack of a better term, that are our crew. They're our people. They're the people we share life with in the biggest way, in the most transparent way, in the most vulnerable way. Everybody needs all three levels of this. If you don't have these, you will find your life needs more support than what you're getting. It's a big deal. I want to talk to you about this last one, and as I do, I will start to say this: the people who are around us and that we're closest to affect our lives. They affect our outcomes. 1 Corinthians 15 says it this way: don't be fooled by those who say such things, for bad company. What they were saying, by the way, that he's saying don't be fooled by it, is some people were saying, and if you just want to go grab your reels or run your TikTok, swipe 40 times or whatever it is that you do, watch your YouTubes, you're going to find that there are people all over our world right now who are publicly saying loudly, it doesn't matter, there is no God. You know what you do? These guys were saying, you know what, there's nothing, you do what you do, you eat, you drink, you marry, you die, you're done. And he was saying, hey, listen, all the way back then, don't be fooled by those who say that garbage. For bad company corrupts good character. He was just saying, hey, be careful who you're listening to. Bad company corrupts good character. Don't invest your life in people who say stupid things. You need to choose to fill your mind, fill your time, fill your circle up with people who matter, people who can help you. If bad company corrupts good character, then I think it would be safe to assume that good company promotes good character. If we want good character, surround yourself with people who are pursuing the same thing. We need a crew of people in our lives who promote a better life, who promote growth, who promote next steps, who promote following Jesus. We need some of those. Hey, they're not everywhere. It's not always easy to find. But Jesus did. He took from a crowd to a community of 12 to a crew of 3. We need to emulate. The numbers don't matter. Your 3 can be 5. Or your 12 can be 14 or 7. I don't know. But what we need is to have all 3 levels of that in our lives. Proverbs says it this way: he who walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Sometimes we are surrounded in a world by so much ridiculousness, and we can all shake our head and just go, that's dumb, that's dumb. If we think we can rub shoulders with that all day long and not do anything to offset it and it not affect us, well, there's words that it talks about in this. If you want to become wise, You'll be with wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. I'm just going to say this. We are suffering harm today because so many of us have so much ridiculousness in our lives, and there's nothing to offset it. So, well, that's not me, and that's what you tell a kid, and that's all those things. You know what you are? If you're beyond that kid stage, you're just a grown-up kid. The same things that affects young affects old. Sometimes it affects us worse, and we should know better. So if you're going to choose a crew, if you're going to choose a little group of people, and that's what I want to encourage you to do today, to think through the possibility of having some people in my life who are not the crowd, and they're not just my community of people I know and people I might even know fairly well, but it is a select group of people with whom I want to share the deepest part of life. Let me tell you what your crew is not. It's not just your buddies. It's not your fantasy football league. It's not your I hunt with them. The things, hobbies in common. We work on cars. We all go and do that thing or that thing. It's that my group of buddies. We laugh together. We talk together. It's not that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. And man, if you've got that, yay. I'm just not saying that's not your crew. Just because you may spend time with them and just because you may have something in common doesn't mean that would be a crew. It's just not what I'm talking about. I'm not shooting at that. Just saying that's not what we're talking about. It's not your social media BFFs. It's not the people who you always comment on their stuff and they always comment on your stuff. They remember your birthday and you remember their. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I hope you have some of that in your life if you like that stuff in your life. I'm just saying that's not what this is about. It's not people who you like to post your picture of your best meal or what you just built or your kid's birthday or where you went on vacation. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about something beyond that. It's not the people who you send the most GIFs to. And I know if you call it a GIF and I call it a GIF, you can call it whatever you want. But it's not the person that while you're scrolling through stuff, you go, oh, I'm going to send them that. I'm going to send them that. That's hilarious. And then they send you stupid stuff. And every time I sit down in a serious place to do something, I get something from somebody that I probably don't need to be looking at that moment. It's not that person. It may be that person, but it's not for that reason. It's not just somebody who has your sense of humor or somebody you just enjoy shooting the breeze with or doing whatever. That's not what your crew is. What your crew is, let's start with this, is people who are intentionally following Christ. They're not people who go to church and that's it. They're not people who go, oh yeah, I guess I believe. They are people who are intentionally trying to take next steps to let their life become the life God created it to be. They're people who are serious about it. They're people who are willing to adjust their life to become what Christ wants them to be, to become more like Christ. They are people who are looking for life support. That word intentional is such a big deal. We found that that's what we said about Jesus. He intentionally chose those who are around him. We need to choose people who are intentional about following Christ. The second thing is that it needs to be people who regularly live in the GCD. GCD is greatest common denominator. I believe we live in a world of least common denominator thinkers and livers. Just whatever the lowest value point is, that's what we'll circle around. And you know what? Maybe that's fine. Maybe you've got a whole group of people who you just like sending stuff to and you all laugh and joke around. And it's not a bad thing. But I'm just telling you, if that's what she said is the depth of your friendship, it's not saying that's a bad friendship. You just may need some better friends than that. Or for your crew, you may need people who will live in the greatest common denominator. The thing you have in common is not that you both work in the same work world. It's not that you have the same skills or the same sense of humor. It's that you have the common values of what your life is about. If you're a dad, it's going to be some people who are dads that are trying to become better dads, and they're serious about it. They take the gifts that God has given them of children and say, I will not waste this. I will spend my life investing in trying to become a model for those who come behind me. If you're married, it may be somebody, other wives who are not puking on their husbands all the time. They're not constantly telling you everything that's wrong with them. The greatest common denominator for them will be what God is building into them. They'll not be the people who love to judge everything that's wrong with the rest of the world. Your greatest common denominator with them will be that they are trying to find a way to breathe life into a lifeless world, to breathe hope into a hopeless world. You need to find people who are intentionally following and who regularly live in the greatest common denominator stuff. They don't take everything down. If you have a conversation, it doesn't always end up at the lowest possible points. And then the third one, people who will embrace the awkward. Embrace the awkward simply means they'll actually do life with you, and life is awkward. When you're struggling, that you can have a conversation about the things with which you struggle. The ability to be able to say, man, this is going tough for me, and they won't just blow it off or just say something goofy, that they will embrace that. They will care that it's bothering you, or that they would feel safe to say to you, hey man, here's something I'm dealing with and I don't know what to do with that. This is what's going on at work and I'm concerned about it. Or here's the crazy, they might even say to you that I'm concerned about you. Are you okay? Well, I don't even know what to do with that. That makes me feel awkward. I know that good things in life almost always feel awkward, at least when you begin. Following Jesus felt awkward. Living a life that is counter to the society we live in often feels awkward. There are people who will embrace the awkward and just say, yeah, it's going to be some weird moments. We're going to have some weird discussions, but we're not going to live like everybody else lives. We're going to play to a different tune. We're going to shoot for a higher standard. People who will embrace the awkward. When I was growing up, or when I worked with youth, this is a statement that we often use. It said, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Show me your crew. A lot of us have crews that have just happened over time, but they're not necessarily the healthiest group of people. Or maybe they're wonderful people. They're just not helpful for us to move to the next level in our lives. I'm not saying we don't need those other people in our lives. I'm just saying everybody needs a crew of a few, 3 or 4 people that you can share life, but they push you and walk with you and care for you in a different way. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. That's what we say to kids. And the truth is, a lot of us as adults, we would tell our children that. When your kids are growing up, be careful who you hang out with, be careful who you allow to invest, be careful whose voice has a lot of sway in your life. All of us have watched people we love have people whispering in their ear like these things, and you're like, don't listen to that. Hey, listen, you need to be careful, because those people aren't going, you tell your kids that, you tell your friends that, but in your life, do you have people who in your world are moving you toward a future that you'd be proud of, the future you hope for and dream for? Social scientists say it this way: we are the collective average of the 5 people who we're closest to. The collective of the average of the 5 people we're closest to. If you were to look at that, the 5 people you're closest to, who would those be? Matter of fact, I want to do a little test with you. If you've got something close by you can write this down on. If you've got your phone and can open up notes or whatever you keep notes on, you can do it on that. Take a chance and do this with me. Just take a second. I wonder if you would just write down the names of people. Write down the names of people who you would consider kind of your crew. The people who you're close enough to, you could just on a bad day call and say, dude, I am struggling. I screwed up. I don't know what to do. Or just immediately call and say, you're not going to believe what happened. This is great. I mean, those people who would drop what they're doing to listen, to care, and to help. Your crew, your people. If you were to write down the names, just do that. Like, if you don't want to write it down, just do it in your mind. Just think, yep, them and them and them. Or for some people, if you've got a pen, you're just writing and you're running out of ink. And then other people are like, well, I wish I had people like that in my life. Here's the crazy thing about this little test. When you're listing it, only list the people who are in your crew. They can't be related to you, so take those names out, and they can't be your pet. My good old dog, he's the only one I can trust. Well, that may be true, but that's not part of your crew. While he may bring a lot of value to your life, he doesn't bring the life support that we need. Interesting, 25 years ago, when you asked people to do this, the average person would, in a short amount of time, write down 6 names. They would go, yep, 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 and yep. However, today, the average person comes up with 2 names. And to make it even harder, 25% of people who ask that will have 0 names. They won't be, it may be you. You're going, I can't think of one person. Matter of fact, one of the toughest spots in my life right now is I don't know that there's one person I could trust, one person that cares enough, one person that's, when you're talking about all that stuff, I don't even know what to do with that information because I have no one in my life who is that way. And really all I'm trying to say today is that we need those people. If you have those people, then leverage those people. Don't just let it be coincidental. Don't just let it be run of the mill. Don't just let it be, oh yay. Fight for that. Fight for those relationships. Dig into those relationships. Use those relationships. If you don't, then some strategies maybe that would help. Let me just tell you this. Here's what a crew does. A crew regularly spends time together. They find a way to share space. For some people, that's every week. In my life, I've had crew people that we found a way. We were busy people. As a matter of fact, almost everybody I've ever asked to be in my crew were the busiest people I knew. I don't know why that is, but I'm like, I feel bad even saying, hey, can we do this together because they're so busy. And then I've had people ask me, and I felt like, I don't have another time. But the things that are most important to us, we make most important and we make time for. We adjust our lives. I'll be honest with you, this is one of those that it pays you back enough. A healthier life will produce more in the long run. It'll actually give back time. But there are people in your life that you regularly spend time together. Second one is that they resource you instead of fixing you. And I won't spend a lot of time on this. I really could. Be careful who you choose. Let me give you a for instance. One of the things that most of us deal with is most of us are controlling. Now, some people don't think they're controlling. Other people just admit it. Yep, I'm a control freak. Some people are big personalities and it's obvious. You know, you go, oh yeah, they just control everything they do. When they walk into a room, they suck the air right out of it. No matter what everybody else is doing, now we're going to do whatever you're doing. They can take any conversation, you can start it, and they're going to finish it. Some people are controlling that way. Some people are soft-spoken and mild-mannered, and we go, they're not controlling, but can I tell you, there's just a lot of ways to control. I sit with couples sometimes who are going through marriage stuff, and we talk about this subject. And often there's a piece where one of them is big and loud, and they are kind of the outgoing controllers. They go, they're very controlling. I go, well, are you controlling? No, I don't. That's not kind of my... And then we'll talk, and often they're the people, when things don't go their way, they just shut down. We're just not going to talk about it anymore. Can I just say that? That's controlling. They're the people who can 1,000 paper cuts rather than one big spear that goes through the side. But it doesn't mean they're not controlling. All of us have issues with control, but this is a really careful one to be careful about. When you're building your crew, if you find somebody who is more of a fixer, no matter what you say, they just want to go, well, here's what you need to do. Can I just tell you, nobody knows exactly what you need to do all the time. Be careful of people who know everything because they're never going to hear what you're saying enough to help you. Doesn't mean people can't speak truth into your life, but listen, people who want to be a part of your team are good resourcers. They resource you instead of fixing you. For me, it's people who I've talked to, and instead of saying, you know what you need to do, they say, Chris, I'm so sorry. Man, I'm sorry you're going through that. What can I do to help? What can I do? And I always go, I don't know. If I knew what you could do, I would do it myself. You know, some stupid thing like that. And then they often say, hey, listen, I wonder about this. What can we look into? Who can we talk to? What can we read? What can we find? Hey, why don't we figure that out together? Hey, you know what? I've got a friend. I've got a book I read. I've got a thing that I was just looking online about. Here's maybe, I saw a video the other day. I bet this would, they're resourcers. They're not fixers. They'll speak truth into your life, but mainly what they will do, and this one kind of explains it, they'll have 2 ears and 1 mouth. They will listen and they'll try to understand before they try to fix, repair, or instruct. That's what friends do, by the way. That's what people who love you do, by the way. Sometimes that's really hard for me. I like to talk. You guys have already figured that out. It's really hard for me to say, I'm going to 2-to-1 listen to speak. God was pretty smart with giving us 2/1, double. It's not just to listen to what somebody says so I can say what I need to say. It's to listen to what somebody says so I can understand them. Not just their words, understand them. It's the ability to care. And sometimes the best gift you can give somebody is your full attention, that you won't be thinking about the next thing that's going to happen, the person in the next room. You won't be thinking about the smart thing you're going to say. You will just take in. You will let it land on you. You will feel their hurt or their struggle or their excitement or their whatever it is. Look for people in your crew who have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I'm not just saying on their anatomy, but who use it that way. Those will be great friends. Those will be people who will be life changers. The question I get most when I talk about things like this, and the one I deal with most, is that would be great if I had 3 or 4 people in my life that I care about, who care about me. If you're a guy here and this all sounds way too kumbaya, we're all going to all hold hands and sing a song and hug a little bit, I'm just saying, get over yourself. If you don't have some guys in your world who you can be close enough to that you can care about and they care about you, who would drop whatever the heck they're doing right now if you needed help. If you don't have some people who you can just say, dude, it's not going great for me. Long before you walk out of your marriage or before you jump into the affair, before you do the stupid thing you think about doing, somebody you call and say, boy, I am so tempted right now, that'll say, you need to stop. I'll meet you in 10 minutes and we're going to sit down together. If you don't have any of those people, it's not because you're so strong you don't need them. It's because you're so brainwashed that you think you don't need them. You don't think that's what men do. That's exactly what healthy men do. And you ladies, it goes just the same. You may do this more naturally, but for so many I talk to, they just go, I wish I had that. Yeah, send me a dozen of those. They're hard to find. I'll just give you this quickly, how to find them, and I'll base it on what Jesus did. Look for them all the time. Make it your quest in life. I'm going to find 3 or 4 people in my life, and I'm going to have that level of friendship. I'm going to have that level of life sharing. I'm going to have that level of life. That we're not just going to be buddies. 1,000 buddies and no friends is not the help we need. It's fun, but I'm going to look for those people. Jesus, from the time he started walking around and let people know who he was, he started saying, hey, what about you? What about you? He initiated. He said, hey, you want to follow me? Would you follow me? Invitation over and over. If you wait for somebody else, you're not ever going to get there. Sometimes it means you're going to have to say, awkwardly, hey, I don't know, and I don't even know how to do this, but I'm looking for some people over the next few weeks. I'm going to get a couple other guys and we're going to do this. I'm going to get a couple other ladies and we're going to do this. A couple other students and we're going to do this. We're just going to hang out a little while. Would you have a little time? We're just going to go grab some coffee and talk about this. We're just going to grab breakfast before work. We're just going to meet for lunch. We're going to do something after work, or we're going to go, whatever that looks like for you. You have to look all the time. You have to initiate. When Jesus did it, he stopped everything that was so important to him and he went and prayed all night over it. Pray and ask God over and over, would you put people in my path that could be that person for me? Hey, I'm going to tell you this. He has already put people in your path you didn't notice. That's true for all of us. Sometimes we just don't recognize it because we're not looking for it. It means you're going to have to be the one to say, by the way, there's going to be some people who say, no, I don't have time. They're not mean people. They're just people who've got a lot of things going on and it may not be the right person. You just pray that God will open up their mind, open up their heart, and open up those doors for you. And then test. Do some things in your world so you get to spend some time with those people, because you're going to find that just because you met them and see them, it may not work for you. They may not fit well into your crew. Your personalities may not match well enough. For us around here, we do things like this all the time. One of the places you can look is go to groups. And a group may have 10 or 12 people in it. It may have more than that in your group. Over and over, the more times you go to group, when you're going to group, be looking for people that you go, someday that may be a person who I'd like to develop something further with. Look that way. That's a great way to test. Go to the retreat. Ben, go to the men's retreat that's coming up. What a perfect opportunity. Last year I went. I sat with some guys. There were some people there that when I sat with them, I just remember thinking, man, that guy's got stuff that I would love to have in my life. He seems to be able to understand some things that I'm going through. He seems to relate to me in a way. And that's not weird. It's how friendships are built. I think most of us, we know how to build friendships. If we all like to golf, let's go golfing. If you like to smoke a cigar, if you like to go and do whatever your favorite hobby, if you like to go shop, or if you like to go drink coffee, you can do that. Friendships are deeper than that, but it starts with something, and it means we have to dig in, so test it. And then the last one, and the reason we put this one really big and these all so small, this is the biggest one. Be the person you're looking to find. Be a person, 2 ears and 1 mouth. Be a person who's deeply interested. Be a person who wants to invest in others. Be available. Be that person. Constantly help resource others. Don't be everybody's fixer. Be awake and aware. Get past your own stuff enough to be interested in somebody else's stuff. All of these things will help you find. And listen, that may not be a month or 3 months or a year or 2 years. It may take you a long time. I'm just saying you can never lose by trying to build those people into your world. Jesus, when he was just about ready to be crucified, he met in the upper room. He told everybody what was going on. They broke bread together and did the whole thing. Deep, ugly discussions, and he was hurting so deeply on the inside. And he said, I need to go pray, because that's what Jesus did when he was hurting on the inside, as he went to pray and talk to his Father. And right before he left the room, he said, hey, Peter, James, John, would you come with me? I'm going through, listen, this is literal for him, I'm going through hell. And I need somebody who'll go with me. And he tapped his crew on the shoulder and they went with him. Everybody needs somebody they can tap on the shoulder. Now, we've been watching these videos to start every message during this life support series. And every one of them have been around D-Day, and every one of them we've added a little bit more. This week we added that Robert and Kenneth, the 2 guys who kind of become the star of our show, the medics that were sent, that landed on D-Day and found themselves in such important places. They found a building, a safe building. They found a safe place. They found this church, and they hung a red cross on it. So everybody would know that this is the place that's safe. This isn't the place to be political. This isn't whose side are you on. It is the place for people to find help. It is the place for people to heal. It is the place for people to get better. Wouldn't it be great if we had those places? Where people walked in and said, they're not here to make me just like them, little Stepford Christians that we churn out. They're not here to try to convince me that everything I've ever thought's wrong and everything they think is right. They are here to care for people, to invest in people, to love people, to help people find healing together. And what's fascinating is they went in this little church and it had these little wooden pews all the way through it. And as soon as they started, they'd bring people in and they'd set them down and they would try to deal with them as best they could. As they got more and more of them in there, they started having these thoughts. I wish we had done some triage. I wish we had said up there, hey, let's put the most serious ones over there and the less serious ones over here so that we can be focused with that and not as focused on this. But they said they didn't do it that way. They just stacked them where they were. But then this amazing thing happened. Because they were all mixed together with critical with less critical, that the people who were less critical started caring for the more critical. The injured people started caring for the injured people. The bleeding people started caring for the bleeding people. Who would have seen that coming? When Jesus came, he said, I have come to give life. And what he wanted to do was come and help bleeding people bleed less and help them. Matter of fact, he said, I'll bleed on your behalf. And then he left us here and he said, I want you to do for others what I've done for you. And what he wants from his church, not his building, but his church, the people that follow him. He wants us to bleed together. He wants us to care for people who are hurting while we're hurting. He wants injured people to help injured people. That's the role of the church. We need a crew. Everybody needs a crowd. The people all around them. Whether you need it or not, you got it. Everybody needs a community, a safe place where you can be you with a group of people. But beyond that, everybody needs a crew, some people they can trust, some people they can be completely honest with. It won't happen overnight, but we need to be looking for, longing for, drilling into that, fighting for that. A place where injured people will help injured people become the people they were created to be. That's what life support's all about. That is your role, to find it and to be that for someone else. Don't underestimate the power of little circles of people who find safety enough to become everything God created them to become. Don't underestimate what that'll do in your home. Don't underestimate what that'll do in your job. Don't underestimate what that'll do in our community. And don't underestimate what a whole group of groups like that can do. Because it's the way Jesus did it. And by the way, the reason we're still talking about it is because it worked. Because those three guys became the pillars of the church. And when Jesus was gone, they took it forward, and it reached all the way for us in West Tennessee, for you, wherever you're sitting. Don't underestimate the power of a little group of people who band together, injured people, caring for injured people, to become the people we were created to be. So God, help us with that. We stink at that. In a world that's so connected, we're more disconnected than ever. Help us fight for that. Hey, could I just say, for those who are the most alone, would you give little rays of hope? Help us bump into people. For all the times that we try to make that happen and it doesn't work out, help us persevere. Help us push forward. I know your desire for us is to be around other people who care enough for us to help us become who we're supposed to be. Help us be that, help us look for that, and help us live in that. We ask it in your name. Amen. Thanks for watching.